Hello there everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Library News. I am your friendly librarian, and I want to start off today by talking a little bit about some upcoming programs at the Oliver Wolcott Library. Our friends over there have some great things going on. So first off is if you are interested in playing the game Dungeons and Dragons, it's a role-playing game with a lot of imagination and strategy that you work together as a team to complete a campaign that the DM or Dungeon Master comes up with. So it's original each time, and it's a lot of fun. If you enjoy the Netflix series Stranger Things, it's featured on that series as well. And so Miss Trish from the Oliver Wolcott Library will be running Zoom sessions starting December 4th. So if you are interested in taking up the game, or if you already have a little bit of experience that you can bring to the table, that's awesome. Go ahead to their website, owlibrary.org, to sign up and check that out. And while you're there, you may also want to look into the monthly teen book club. So it rotates which book we're reading from month to month. And the really cool thing about this club is that at the end of the month, you get to meet the author in a live Zoom session who wrote the book that you were just reading. So on top of that, the November book selection is really awesome. It's called The Dark Tide by Alicia Jasinski. And this is a fantasy story that takes place in a in a fantasy queendom where the witch queen each year has to choose a person to sacrifice, an innocent. And if they do not sacrifice an innocent, then their entire queendom will be flooded and destroyed. Well, another one of our main protagonists, her brother was originally selected as the sacrifice. She finds out about this and asks for help from her crush to go and save him. By accident, she gets her crush captured, and he is going to be the next sacrifice. So she decides to save his life by trading her own and offers to be the sacrifice if he can go free. Well, while she and the queen are there, they are not what the other person was expecting, and some sparks start to fly between them, and then ultimately they face a very difficult choice as to who will be the sacrifice. Would they sacrifice themselves, or would they sacrifice this new person that they care about? Or, if not, it will spell doom for the kingdom. So, worth checking out. They have a bunch of paperback copies and also digital copies if you go to the website, or let me or your English teacher know that you're interested in checking that out. All right, but I want to change gears now and focus on the theme of the week, which is Veterans Day coming up this Wednesday, November 11th. A little bit of history for you in case you don't know. That date, November 11th, is not chosen at random. It has some great significance. For a long time, it was celebrated under the name Armistice Day, which was a celebration of the last day of World War I. November 11th, 1918, when the countries came together to sign an armistice, or a treaty to end the war. So it was believed at the time that that was going to be the war to end all wars. Turns out that is not exactly how it happened. We know with the benefit of hindsight. But I want to take a moment right now to say, certainly for myself, but also I'm sure on behalf of this entire community, I want to extend my biggest thanks to our veterans in this community and beyond, and all of those who have served our country in a positive way. We really appreciate your sacrifice and what you've done for ourselves and for our country. So thank you for that. And in that theme, we are going to highlight for you some of some great books that are written by authors who have served. All right, so I want to start off with one of my personal favorite authors, and that's Tim O'Brien. So this book is called Going After Cacciato. It's not his most famous book. You might have heard of that. It's called The Things They Carried is his most famous book. This one is pretty similar. So Tim O'Brien served in the military in Vietnam, so he fought overseas. And even though his stories are fictional, they're often very much influenced by his true experiences. But what makes Tim O'Brien such a unique author is that he doesn't really tell his stories like a linear novel. A lot of times he tells them in a series of shorter stories that connect in some way, but that's not always obvious. And beyond that, he has a really unique style of writing where he blends magical realism and even fantasy into the stories, because according to him, to tell a true war story isn't just about telling the facts or the details of the situation. It's about being true to the feeling and the spirit of what happened. And sometimes he takes that and he expands on it, bringing in these fantasy elements and blending it into the story in a way that's very unique and really engaging. So I definitely recommend to you any Tim O'Brien book, including this one. All right, on the more realistic side, this is a new book we just got in this year, and an excellent one. I'm very glad I came upon this. It's called Can't Hurt Me, Master Your Mind and Defy the Odds by David Goggins. So David Goggins was a Marine commander who is now retired. And he had a really, really difficult situation growing up. Growing up in poverty, lots of violence, lots of issues at home, and he overcame it. And in this one, he talks about his story and what he had to do mentally and physically to prepare himself to overcome these obstacles, both leading up to his time in the Marines and including his time in the Marines. And so it's half memoir, half self-help book, because he gives outstanding advice on how to build confidence and how to be a strong person who can really deal with adversity like he did. So another great one. There are many ways to serve, and a great example of that, and of course, not all veterans fit into a single cookie-cutter personality or category. So I want to talk for a minute about Ron Kovic. This is his biography, but he is also an author. His most famous work is called Born on the 4th of July, which is somewhat autobiographical, because he was actually born on the 4th of July to a military family. So Ron Kovic grew up with, fantasies of his time to serve in the military and earn that glory and that honor and all those awesome things that he had always heard about growing up. The thing is that when he was deployed to Vietnam, he didn't find that being a soldier really lived up to the expectation he had received, and he also received a life-changing wound when he got shot in the spine, paralyzed from the waist down, and spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair. So after that, he became an anti-war activist. He spoke out against the Vietnam War and other conflicts. He is part of a generation of veterans that saw the highest form of patriotism being saving our troops from these experiences and speaking out against what they considered to be unnecessary wars, in which case, they only wanted to see our troops put in harm's way in the most dire of situations. So it's a very interesting life story of his that you might want to check out. All right, and there are, as I was saying, many ways to serve, and that doesn't always mean being a soldier. So I want to talk for a minute now about this book by Gertrude Stein called The Autobiography of Alice B. Toklas. And it's kind of a funny title because it's actually Gertrude Stein's own autobiography, but she writes it from the point of view of her secretary and partner, Alice B. Toklas. And of course, they shared a lot of life experiences together, so it works. It makes sense. So her role in World War One. She was an American living in France when it started, and at that time, automobiles were a relatively new invention, so not very popular or well used at the, yet. And so Gertrude Stein was able to get a license, and she helped serve by driving, transporting troops, and especially transporting wounded troops out of harm's way to safety. So a really important contribution. She shares those stories as well as her experience fleeing from Nazi invaders because she and Alice were both Jews and they were still in Europe when World War II came out. So really fascinating life story worth checking out right there. All right. Another way to serve could be summed up by Maya Lin, who's mentioned in this book called Thinking with Her Hands. So Maya Lin was an artist, architect, sculptor, and what she is most famous for is designing the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. So this talks about her experience before that, and then how she had a really unique vision for this memorial that not everybody agreed with. So she had to fight for her vision to be carried out into reality. It was, and it has become, one of the most visited landmarks or memorials in the country. So a pretty fascinating story behind that as well. And last but not least, believe it or not all who serve are human. Animals have been recruited into the military for a variety of purposes. For instance, rats, I believe, are used because they are able to detect landmines without setting them off because they're smaller. But then also the use of canines, dogs, right? Because they've got the sense of smell, they can detect explosives, and many other great applications. So this book is called Warrior Dog, a true story of a Navy SEAL and his fearless canine partner. So as the title implies, it talks about this Navy SEAL who was deployed overseas, and this dog saved his life on multiple occasions. They had a really close, awesome bond. So this is an exciting story, but it's also a heartwarming story. And if you enjoy animals, it's got that element as well. So definitely something worth checking out. All right, so that's all I've got for you on the library news this week. Thank you for watching, and once again, thank you for your service to our veterans. I'm going to finish off by encouraging everyone to do what you can to thank a veteran. Find them, write a letter. You can go online to things like the Wounded Warrior Project and other places where they can give you tips on how to write letters of thanks and where to send them, how you can donate your time or money to support veterans, and we can all make a small sacrifice ourselves in order to give something back to those who have made an amazing sacrifice for us. On that note, this is your friendly librarian saying peace out.